Hi, friends. It's Mr. Rogers here, and we're going to go over osmosis really quick. Osmosis is something we're going to cover over the next couple of days, so I'm not going to go completely in depth, and you also read about it, but I want to make sure that I hit some critical points here. So the question's up on the actual slide there. It says, why do you get thirsty after eating salty foods? It's a good question. Why do you get thirsty? Let's think about it for a second. Why are you getting thirsty after you eat salty foods? So osmosis in general is the movement of water, and water is obviously moving not only to keep itself in the right concentration, but the solute concentration in the right concentration. What I mean by that is quite simple, is if I look here at this paint picture, this is somebody's mouth. I know it's a beautiful picture. These are their cells of their mouth, their cheek cells. And this is the salty food that they just ate. All these positives, I just got sick of writing Na. So we have one here, we have a bunch of NAs here, and we learned this week that charged particles don't really get to go through the membrane very well. And so there's not much movement going in for these NAs, but there's an imbalance here. There's a solute imbalance. And water, being a good guy, being a friendly guy, he wants to make sure that the balance is corrected. And so water, even if it is balanced before this, is going to try to fix this by overloading one side and keeping the concentration levels the same. And so to keep the concentration levels the same, we need a lot more water over here than we do here. Okay, we need to take out water. So water will end up leaving our cells because of the salts, because the Na can't get in, and these cells shrivel up. Now, when your cells shrivel up, it sends a message to your brain that says, "Hey, like we're losing water here. We need some help. We gotta get some more water." And that's why you get thirsty. Your brain says, "Hey, we're losing too much water out of our cells because you're eating too much salt. Make sure that you drink some water." So, kind of building off of that, in osmosis, it is the diffusion of water. That's the basic definition, the diffusion of water. And we said the definition of diffusion is the movement from high to low concentration of either particle concentration, heat, or pressure. And so osmosis is just a diffusion of water. It must, between the two, have a semi-permeable membrane that allows water through. And for water to go through a lot of membranes, there's things called aquaporins. And these aquaporins are channels that are designed to let just water in and out. And our cells have thousands of these. That way we can keep a good water balance. And the water moves most of the time, like we just showed in the picture, not because its balance is off, but because the solute balance is off and the solute can't move. And a lot of times it's the charged particles that do that. In this example that I showed you guys, it was the positives that were thrown off, and water wanted to fix it, wanted to be the fixer of this situation. And so not almost always, water is going to move towards the side with more solute, with the side with the most solute. So it's always going to move in that direction. So in the picture here, this side has more solute, it has more positives, water moves towards it. Okay. And I'll give you a clever way of trying to remember that in a second here. So here we go. This is a picture of water. This is called a U-tube. U-tubes were out before the actual U-tube, and they have a little permeable membrane in the middle, and we could see osmosis because it'll have one side go down, one side go up, that type of thing. And you can see here, we have less solute over here, more solute over here. Mathematically, you can make we can talk about the fact that this side has more water in general anyways, because there's less particles, meaning there's more space for water, less space here. So the water is going to go towards the side with more solute. It's always going to move that direction. So it moves this direction. Okay. Now, hypo, hyper, iso, these are terms that we're going to need to get used to. Hypotonic means it has below the amount of solution of particles here. Okay. Hypo means below. So this side has the lower amount of particles. Hypertonic means it has above the amount of particles. You're always going to have both in each situation. Because if one side is below, the other side is above. And I know that's a weird thing to say, but in every situation, one side's going to be hyper, one side's going to be hypo, unless it's like this, and this guy is currently in isotonic. Now, when you look at this picture, something that 10th graders struggle with is they look at it and they're like, Mr. Rogers, it's still not balanced. And there's only 6 on this side and more than 6 on this side. Well, you got to remember, it's not about the number so much. It's about the concentration. For how much water is here, is the concentration of these particles the same as this? And for us right now, it is. So this is isotonic. Okay, so one side is always hypo, one side is always hyper, unless they're even, which is iso. So isotonic means same tonicity. Hypotonic means lower solute content than inside a cell. Hypertonic means higher solute concentration than inside a cell. So if I put a cell in a hypotonic solution, the cell has more solute, so the water goes in that direction. So if I put a cell in hypotonic, the cell gets bigger. Water's going in. If I put a cell in hypertonic, the water outside of the cell has more concentration, so the water is going to leave the cell. So when I looked at the picture here of this guy, I created a hypertonic solution out here. They have more particles or more charge out here than inside the cell. So water goes towards the side of more and the cells shrink. If I reverse this and I said this was the cell and these were the outside the cell, then this would be hypotonic out here and the cell would get bigger. So an isotonic solution in an animal cell is normal. Animals are looking to be an isotonic. Plants aren't actually. Plants want to be in a different solution. When they're in isotonic, they're what we call flaccid. You guys have seen plants wilt before. That's when they're in isotonic or in a extreme situation in a hypertonic solution. So isotonic, we want to make sure that our blood is always in isotonic. We want to have the same amount of tonicity all across our body, or we're going to have a huge issue. And in humans, we really use our kidneys to keep us balanced. Hypotonic, that is when water is going to be going into the cell because there's a higher concentration of particles inside the cell and lower on the outside. Water always goes towards the higher side. And for us, it lyses our cells or can explode our cells. Lyse means to destroy. For plants, it's normal. Plants want to have be in hypotonic solution because it allows it to stay rigid and stay upright. Okay. Hypertonic, that's when water leaves the cell. It's not good for either plants or animals. We do a little bit better with it for longer than plants. Plants are really struggling when they're in hypertonic solutions. Because I mean, isotonic for them is wilting. It's really, really damaging to them. For us, it is damaging to our cells, but we can get over it. All right, let's see what else I want to talk about. I think that's about it. So my main idea here is we want to make sure that we get the idea that water is going to be moving towards the side with the most particles to try to balance out the concentration. I said I was going to tell you guys a clever way of remembering this. I just always remember that solute sucks. So the side of more solute is going to suck the water that way. So this side has a bunch of particles. It's going to suck the water that way. Therefore, the water is going to go up. Another way I remember this, and the way I teach 10th graders, is isotonic obviously is the easy one. That's balanced. Hypotonic, if I put a cell in a hypotonic solution, it becomes a hippo. Hypo-hippo. Becomes a hippo, it enlarges and gets bigger. If I put a cell in a hypertonic solution, it shrivels up and shrinks. Okay, so hypo-hippo. So we're going to practice this. You're going to have some homework over the weekend kind of practicing this, and I hope it gets easier. Try to think of a clever way to remember how to do that. That's your discussion question on Canvas, to remember how to differentiate hyper, hypo, and iso. If you have any questions, let me know, and I will talk to you guys soon.